Hello and welcome to episode 74 of Battlefield 4 News. Now I've delayed this episode by a day because there was an error in the patch notes for the live servers. Those have now been corrected, so I can go through the patch notes and the patch notes for an update that's happened to the CTE servers. So let's start by taking a look at what's happened on the live servers. So these are the update notes for the 8th of July, which were then edited on the 9th of July. Now there have been some fixes to Commander, but they haven't listed those, so I can't go through them. So we'll start with the general fixes. Fix an issue where players were able to duplicate battle pickups by repeatedly picking up a kit. So if you picked up the grenade launcher and died, and all the other players on the other team could then pick up your kit, that would have the grenade launcher in it. So you could end up with half of your team running around with a grenade launcher. So they've stopped that. Fix for an issue where field upgrades would stop working after one round when players had reached the max field upgrade level. So if you got your 4th tier of perk, you wouldn't get them in the next round. They wouldn't work and you couldn't earn more points to start unlocking them again. You were just stuck. They fixed one of the crashes that occurs when you quit a round. They haven't fixed all of them because I got the Battlefield 4 stopped working when I quit a round earlier this morning. They've added a 15-second warm-up timer for all official games. So when the game starts, it doesn't actually start. It then does a 15-second countdown and then the game will start. So this is to stop people with fancy machines like mine getting into the game before somebody with an older machine. So because I run SSDs, lots of memory and a fancy processor, my PC will load around much quicker than somebody who's running a machine with a standard slower hard drive, a lower processor and less memory. So to stop me getting into the round first and being halfway towards an objective before somebody else spawns in, they've put this 15-second timer in. So when I jump into the round, it will jump in with maybe 15 or 14 seconds running on the timer, but by the time the round loads for somebody else it may only say 6 seconds. But nobody gets a jump start because the round won't start until the timer reaches 0. For some reason when the original version of these patch notes went up there was a joystick dead zone fix, but that happened months ago. It was just included by mistake. Fix for an issue that prevented players issuing squad orders around capture points during the sandstorm on Gulf of Oman. So because the sandstorm affects what you can see, it wouldn't let you see the capture point flags and therefore you couldn't issue an order towards it. Now the sandstorm doesn't affect that. You can tell somebody to go to B even though you can't really see B because of the sandstorm. And they've added an option in the controls to allow you to double tap forward to sprint. So instead of pressing shift and holding shift to sprint, what you can do now is just double tap W and you will sprint, and you will stop sprinting when you release W. By default you're going to have the standard shift sprint option, so you're going to have to go into the menus to turn off that and turn on the double tap sprint if that's what you prefer. There are a couple of graphical fixes. One is that if you crashed a gadget into the water, the splash would happen around the player, not the gadget. And they fixed an issue for Mantle where you could get low frame rates if you were running multiple GPUs. Battlefield didn't handle multiple GPUs through Mantle very well. They've added competitive obliteration to the server game modes. Now this isn't a standard game mode, it's not in a standard rotation, so a server admin has to go in, set it up, and they have to take their server off the official lists because it's not a full game mode. This game mode is basically designed for 5v5 competition play, and they've added it so that teams will be able to practice on the game mode itself. And they fixed an issue where server administrators couldn't ban players that had clan tags because part of the system didn't recognise the clan tags, but another part of the system needed the clan tag to recognise the name. That's now been sorted and people with clan tags can get kicked from servers. In the user interface, they've added the total team experience to the scorecard at the end of a capture the flag game mode round. They've added the aim down sight sensitivity settings, so you can now go into the user options and adjust your sensitivity for hip fire and aim down sights separately. They added the hardcore mode kill card fix by mistake. It's not coming out until the next patch. Dog tags have been rearranged on kill cards so you can see both the left and right dog tag. In Capture the Flag, they fixed it so that when you get out of a vehicle, the flag doesn't stay floating in the midair. They've made using the boost in a vehicle exactly the same as sprinting for infantry. So instead of having to press shift again to turn it off, now all you have to do is stop pressing W. And also the same as infantry sprinting, you can now double tap to boost as well as you can to sprint. They've adjusted the physics on the jet skis so it handles a bit more consistently when you're in waves and in deep water and in shallow water, and basically doesn't spin out all the time. And finally for this patch we have a bunch of weapon fixes. So they fixed it so that if you die, your weapon doesn't sometimes flop around on the floor like a fish, and they've removed the second set of shells that were visible in the animation for reloading the M412, which is the Rex. They fixed the animations for the Hawk shotgun so that when you're in third person mode it will now actually pump the pump action shotgun, and they fixed for the RPG-7 so that the rocket doesn't remain visible in the launcher after the last shot was fired while zoomed in. Now this doesn't just happen on the last shot, it can happen on any shot that you fire off, you don't reload, you switch to a weapon. Sometimes when you come back the RPG will still be there, but you're not loaded. They fixed the bipod animations for the MTAR-21, although why you want to use a bipod on the MTAR-21 I don't know. And they fixed where a player holds the M416, so sometimes you would have a foregrip on there but it would still hold on to the rail rather than the foregrip, and by mistake they put M417 in there as well, even though that's not a Battlefield 4 gun. So I've got no idea who wrote these patch notes. They fixed the broken animation when switching to the AWS as the main weapon. I hadn't noticed that the animation was broken, so I don't know what they fixed, but I'll take their word for it. So those patches and fixes are all on the live server, so you should see those in game as soon as you've done the update. Next we've got some updates for the CTE server. This update's already happened a day ago, so if you're playing CTE, these are already in game, and if you don't play CTE, it's interesting to see what's going to come up. This is what DICE are fixing and developing, what we're testing, and what you can expect in the live game in future patches. So this is another set of patch notes by Tiggy. Now I think it's Tiggy. I was playing against him the other day on one of the CTE servers, and when he killed me, his icon is Tigger. So I'm not sure if it's supposed to be Tiggy or Tigger, but I'm going to keep calling him Tiggy. Anyway, he says, we have another update today. Sadly we have not been able to fix the patch size yet, but we are working on fixing this issue. Now at the moment, if they change something in CTE, they have to send a whole bunch of files. They can't just send the ones they've updated. Not sure why, but it doesn't work in CTE. So this patch size was 15 gig. Took quite a while to upload. For the first time on CTE, we now have every map. So we've got the base pack maps, China Rising, Second Assault and Naval Strike. CTE is not getting the Dragon's Teeth maps early. We have had the weapons early, and we've encountered a few problems with those which will be fixed when it goes on to the live game. But for the maps we'll probably get those the same time as the live servers, and any problems that come up on live then we can test on CTE. And there are a couple of fixes here. So the Nansha Strike slow loading terrain bug has been fixed, and China Rising map streaming issues. Now I'm not exactly sure what they mean by streaming issues. but I think it's down to some of the textures. On China Rising sometimes you'll have texture clashes that cause flicker, and I think it might be that's been fixed. Now, as part of their Dice Loves Rush updates, they've changed the vehicle spawn timers. So on a lot of the maps they've removed a large number of the vehicles. Now they're also delaying when they'll appear in a round. So on Rogue's Transmission, infantry fighting vehicles don't spawn in for 60 seconds. So when a base has been captured, the new infantry fighting vehicle won't spawn in for 60 seconds after the capture. This is to stop the vehicles zerging up the map as soon as a base has been captured, and it also means that the attackers have time to kick the defenders out of the area where the vehicles are going to spawn. Now here they've called the map Abandoned, and that is the in-house name for Zavod. For some reason they haven't put Zavod, they've put Abandoned. And they've done the same for the infantry fighting vehicle and the tank on base 4. So that's going to take 60 seconds to appear. Siege of Shanghai, all of the Amtraks and main battle tanks won't spawn for 60 seconds on the bases. And the same for Hainan Resort, the infantry fighting vehicle won't spawn for 60 seconds after a base capture. Whenever DICE make any changes to the UI on CTE servers, they now title it UI Triage, which is a bit confusing as there is now a Triage UI. So I wish they'd just put it as UI changes rather than UI Triage. Anyway, World HUD icons like mission objectives, flags, capture points, all that kind of stuff now scale with distance. So when you look towards an objective in the distance, you don't get the massive C. What you get is a smaller C depending on how far away it is. And now you can set the size of how large those world icons should be in any case. So that's for common items like flags and capture points, friendlies and enemies. You can now specify how big those are going to be even when you're close up. And they've reduced the size of the revive HUD, so that's the triage HUD, which is the round ring around their icon that tells you how long they've got left to be revived. And that's been reduced by 25% so that it's not quite so dominant. Originally it was a ring around the edge of the existing icon. Now they've made it the same size as the old icon used to be without it. And we've had 2 new maps added to the rush rotation. Flood Zone, which has been completely updated even so far as it now goes backwards. So whereas before you went from the right hand side of the map to the left, now you're capturing points from the left hand side of the map to the right. And there are only 3 sets of capture points. And we now have Goldmud Railway. This doesn't feel like it's changed as much. It's still got quite a few tanks on it, and I think maybe they're going to try and do this map as the vehicle rush map. So it's going to have main battle tanks, jeeps, ATVs, all the usual kind of stuff on it, and they're going to try and work the balances that way. Now I am going to try doing videos on these. I did one on Flood Zone which was a bit of gameplay to show you how it had changed, and that didn't seem to go over quite as well as the detailed breakdown of where the MCOMs are videos that I'd done before. But those more detailed style of videos are becoming harder to produce, and that's because there are now 7 maps in the rush rotation. So that's 14 rounds because you play as attacker and defender. So even if I do a video on Goldmud Railway, I'm going to get 2 rounds of that, but before the next 2 rounds come around, I've got to play 12 other rounds of rush for the server to come back around to Goldmud Railway. Now, unfortunately, it's not like live, where I could just swap to one of the 30 or 40 other rush servers. There may be only 2 or 3 rush servers running at any one time, and trying to find a server that's running the map you actually need is getting a bit tricky. But I will do my best. I just can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to get footage of every single MCOM and its location and the area around it. and I have played nothing but Rush for the last 2 weeks to try and get footage to do these videos, and when I finally get it sorted, they release an update that changes the maps again. So I will do my best, I just can't promise anything. But that's it for this episode of Battlefield 4 News. I'll try and get the Rush videos out as soon as possible. Hopefully Flood Zone tomorrow and Goldmud Railway on Monday. I'm not doing one on Hainan Resort because it's still awful. I'll wait until they've done some proper fixes on that. Thanks for watching.